Free agency is often regarded as the period where teams can adapt rosters to their needs, and players can find the appropriate situation to get close to achieving their respective goals. However, while some transactions don't require too much of a thought process to be completed, others need a thorough analysis, given they can change the trajectory of either a player's career or a team's. That is the case of Gordon Hayward, someone who's facing arguably the most important financial decision of his basketball career, while also pondering whether he wants to keep playing with the Boston Celtics or not. But things don't stop there. His decision will also have a significant impact on the future of his current team. Still, while there may be multiple factors favoring a return to Beantown, there's something the former star may value more than anything else: the opportunity to become the face of a franchise once again. And that could be enough to take him somewhere else. Welcome to Courtside. Today, we're taking a look at how Hayward's career has taken a step back during his time with the Celtics and whether that could be enough to make him want to leave. In the summer of 2010, Gordon was coming off an excellent college season with Butler University, in which he led his team to the NCAA championship game and almost secured the title with a shot that ultimately didn't go in. Still, while he couldn't guide his team to a win over mighty Duke, his performance throughout the season earned him recognition as one of the best players in his class. So, he decided to forego his final 2 years of college to declare his eligibility for the draft. However, he would land in an uncommon situation in the NBA. With the 9th pick, the Utah Jazz selected the young forward, but unlike most lottery teams, the team was coming off a 50-win season in which it reached the second round of the playoffs. And on top of that, most of the team's best players played in the same position as Hayward. In other words, while most other rookies selected in the lottery were able to receive big minutes from their first game as professionals, Gordon had a more limited role because of the team's previous success and the depth of the roster at the moment. But even though he didn't make too much of a difference during his rookie season, Hayward's role would increase in the following year. And after a couple of seasons of making steady improvements as a complementary piece, he quickly established himself as Utah's franchise player. After the 2012-13 season, the Jazz brought back neither Paul Millsap nor Al Jefferson, who were the team's two best players at the time. Thus, their departures allowed Gordon to emerge as Utah's primary option on offense. The move produced an expected regression in the team's record during the next few seasons. However, it allowed them to help Hayward become the clear leader of the team while also providing a window for players like Rudy Gobert to develop. That patience rewarded Utah in 2017 as the franchise was able to make its return to the playoffs behind the stellar play of both Hayward and Gobert. The duo also led the team to its first series victory since 2010 before losing to the eventual champion Golden State Warriors. But unfortunately for the franchise, that's as long as it would go, with Gordon as its cornerstone. In the summer of that year, the star forward became an unrestricted free agent and decided to leave the team that drafted him to join the Boston Celtics. Among the reasons why the forward decided to sign with Boston, there's the fact the team was already a contender in the Eastern Conference. That, along with its history as one of the most successful organizations in the league, made their proposal an appealing one. However, the Celtics had an additional thing in their favor, the fact that Brad Stevens was the coach of the team. Before joining Boston, Stevens was the head coach of Butler University, the same team Hayward was a part of from 2008 to 2010. So when the opportunity to become the star player of a championship contender that was guided by his college coach was presented to him, it was just too good an offer for Hayward to decline. Therefore, he became what was considered at the moment as the best free agent signing in franchise history. Then, a little over a month after his signing, the team announced it had acquired Kyrie Irving via trade to form one of the most impressive rosters in the league. The idea of Hayward, Irving, and Al Horford playing together and a solid supporting cast surrounding them made the Celtics a championship contender for the foreseeable future. But suddenly, things would change for the worse. 6 minutes into the opening game of the season, Gordon suffered a gruesome injury after landing awkwardly following an alley-oop attempt. The injury, which was diagnosed as a fractured tibia and dislocated ankle in his left leg, took the forward out for the season and changed the outlook of the team. Then by the time he was able to make a return to the court, many things had changed within the roster. Young players like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Terry Rozier had taken a step forward in their development while he and Irving were out because of injuries. And while that was an encouraging sign, given that the Celtics had arguably the best roster in the league on paper, when it came to the actual games, things didn't work out. There were multiple chemistry issues, and Boston dealt with inconsistency throughout the season. The team often followed excellent stretches with underwhelming ones, and players like Howard and Brown were taken in and out of the starting lineup. As we all know, the result was a disappointing loss in the playoffs at the hands of the Bucks, along with the departure of Irving, Horford, and Rozier in free agency. But there were reasons to be optimistic. On the one hand, the team managed to replace Irving with Kemba Walker, who ended up being a better fit. On the other hand, with the subtraction of a few egos, it was believed the Celtics would be able to perform better on the court. As things turned out, the roster was able to put on a better performance on a regular basis, and players seemed to be happy to play with each other. For his part, Hayward was able to revitalize his career by playing and starting in most of the team's games and producing his better averages since his last season in Utah. However, he dealt with a few injuries that affected his consistency throughout the season, and then when the playoffs came around, he was forced to miss all but 5 games after suffering a grade 3 ankle sprain early in the first round. Even while he played like his all-star self from time to time, injuries never allowed him to perform consistently at his best, and what's worse, he was unable to help his team when they needed him the most. So, how could his time with the Celtics affect his upcoming decision in free agency? Well, considering the better part of his first 3 years in Boston was taken away because of injury, it's hard to make a proper analysis of how his partnership with the Celtics worked out. However, we can still reach a few conclusions from what we saw from him during last season. First, we can tell Gordon is still capable of producing at a high level. While he's never been an elite scorer, Hayward became a star in Utah because of his all-around production. And despite being in a limited role, it was evident he could still do a little bit of everything for his team at a high level. Second, while it was reasonable for Boston to slowly integrate him back into the offense, it was clear the team didn't need him to be the player it signed in 2017. With the rise of Tatum and Brown, as well as the signing of Walker, he became the fourth option on offense and had a role that was redundant on the wing. And while his new role could end up helping the Celtics compete for a championship in years to come, it's understandable if he felt uncomfortable doing less than he's capable of while still in his prime. After all, he's still 30 years old and should have a few more seasons of high-level production left in the tank. His play could benefit either the Celtics or any other team that's interested in giving him a larger role. However, his decision could end up being based on the money he receives, as much like the situation in which he may play. Along with Mike Conley, Hayward had the most amount of money attached to a contract option for the upcoming season. His $34.1 million player option would give him the best salary he'd received in his professional career to date. Given his recent history with injuries, it could be hard for him to find a similar deal in the open market. In short, if he wanted to become a free agent, he would need to leave what could be the biggest payday of his career on the table. As desperate as he could be for playing in a different team, that would be a difficult decision to make. However, even if he decided to test the market, the available options wouldn't be as attractive as Boston. All the teams expected to have cap space are either in the idle of a rebuild or have yet to prove they can compete for a playoff spot. But there would still be some options for him to consider. If his representation was confident it could find an ideal situation for him, it could seek an agreement with the Celtics in which he either opted into his player option and then got traded, or became a free agent to compete, a sign and trade with a team of his preference. Those options would also be beneficial to Boston, given that if Hayward left as a free agent, the team would lose his cap space and would find it very hard to upgrade the roster. On top of that, it has been reported the team has been working on potential trades involving the forward, and it even extended the deadline for him to decide whether to opt into or opt out. So given that a lot of people want him, according to rumors, it could be a matter of time before we see Gordon in a new team. And even if he's not asked to be the guy anymore, it's easy to see him doing more than he did last season in a different situation. All in all, we can tell Hayward's time in Boston hasn't been the easiest for him. After being expected to become one of the main contributors of a championship contender, injuries and the evolution of the players around him ended up diminishing his role into a fourth option. But while it may seem like an easy thing to do, opt out of his contract to look for a better situation, well, the financial situation of the NBA makes things more complicated. So the best alternative for him could be to reach an agreement with the Celtics. That way he could even end up in his hometown, Indiana. But it will be a matter of time before we can tell for sure where he'll go next. But now, do you think he'd be better by leaving Boston or staying? If he does leave, where do you think he should be playing next? Let us know your thoughts in the comments section. We hope you've enjoyed today's video, and if you did, remember to like it and subscribe to our channel for more NBA content. We are Courtside.